Thanks, everyone, for being here today. I'll just go quite briefly through the fellowship, the things I've learned, share all of that with you so that we have enough time for questions afterwards. So my fellowship project was looking at the socioeconomic impact of data centers in South Africa. This is quite important to me because I am a half South African, have lived there for most of my life. And since around 2008, we've had these rolling blackouts, like recurring blackouts that are called load shedding. And there are many reasons for this, but basically a combination of corruption, poor management, and a lot of other things means that the country's energy system is and has been at a breaking point for quite a while. Coupled with that, the country has water shortages that are becoming more and more frequent with climate change. In 2010, for example, in Cape Town, we almost reached day zero. So that's the day when there's like no more water left. And within this context, data centers are springing up all around the country. And I wanted to look into the impact that these data centers are having on people. One of the goals of the project was to understand the lay of the land with regards to data centers in South Africa. So how much energy do they use? How much water do they use? Are they load shedding exempt? These were some of the questions I was trying to get at to try and understand their impact. A big portion of the work was also connecting with climate activists that are based in South Africa or focus on South Africa. I wanted to understand if this is a topic that's on their radar. Is it something they're looking into, or it's, completely new? And then linking those two is awareness. So how do we raise awareness? How do we foster collaboration between different groups, activists, advocates, researchers, government, all of them because all of these groups are needed to sort of tackle this issue. So some of my key findings, which I can go into in more detail in the questions, but a severe lack of transparency would be the biggest result. This stretches all the way from a lack of openness from government in terms of when I contacted them, were they willing to share data on this? Were they willing to speak to me or other researchers about this? All the way to the data centers themselves. So there's very little law in South Africa at the moment governing them. And so they aren't obliged to release information on how much energy they use or water they use. So some do, and it tends to be those that are a subsidiary of like an international data center company or conglomerate, say. But there is just overall a big lack of transparency, and that information asymmetry is quite problematic because it means that activists don't know how much they don't know, and that puts them at a disadvantage in terms of fighting this issue. The second one is tech is not your hero. So some activists knew about the data center issue, but a lot of them didn't, and they saw tech as something that can only be good. But something that's come up through this research is that tech in and of itself is not going to be some sort of benevolent hero. There needs to be some sort of regulation or protection in place because the power dynamic is just so unequal that it becomes a risk. It becomes dangerous just for ordinary people. Coordination is very, very important. The work is a bit fragmented. So you'll see in America and Europe, they're a bit further along in activism and research on this topic than in South Africa and some of the other African countries. And the people that are working on it are often not very connected. So academics aren't really speaking to researchers or to independent researchers or climate activists. And that, again, is another disadvantage because the tech companies are all working together and sharing information. And that, again, lack of information, lack of transparency, information asymmetry puts these advocacy groups or individuals at a disadvantage relative to the bigger players. So the impact and change of this research. Personally, I've seen some growth in myself in terms of my knowledge and contributions in the space. I think it's quite natural and normal to begin something and feel a bit yeah, sometimes maybe a bit vulnerable, or there's a sense of imposter syndrome there, especially if you're doing it sort of independently, not connected to a university. You think, can I do this? And the answer is yes, I can. And you all can too. We'll hear from the other fellows. So that's been an area of growth, and it's been great. In terms of communities, I've managed to forge stronger connections between activists, researchers, and advocates, and that's been great. What's also been great in terms of the community is connecting people. So I could see that people were working in silos, and in speaking to different people and learning about their work, you also start to see where, mutually beneficial relationships can grow. And that helps create a sense of community, and that's a type of power, I feel. In terms of research, working with others to shape research in South Africa and beyond. So through all the research and the connections that I've been making, there are opportunities to grow, focus and work on this area in South Africa and beyond. And that's really exciting, not just for me personally, but for awareness of this topic. So what's next? The overall next step would be to continue with this research, with building this community, with diving into this work. And at the moment, I see this happening in two different sort of paths. There's European connections and African connections. So with the European connections, I have the opportunity to share some of this work at the Mozilla Festival happening in June in Amsterdam. I have a meeting of European data center activists in Cambridge, organized by the Minderoo Center for Technology and Democracy. So these are just two of the many things that are happening, but I see them as opportunities to learn from researchers and advocates in Europe and the US and beyond, who are a bit further ahead in this work. So they've already started forming communities where they are thinking about how to advocate or push for regulation at the European level, for example. And those are learnings and skills that will be very important for building a South African or even an African community on this. And then in terms of the African connections, growing community, so that's been also a key finding. It's very important to keep this work going, keep researchers connected, keep advocates connected and up to date on this. And that's one of the things that I'm going to continue to do in partnership with some of the organizations and people that I've been in contact with. So that is it, a brief summary of the fellowship. Thank you so much. I am really looking forward to your questions or any feedback you have.